Hello, Paul Swift here at Bike Fit, powered by CyclePoint, and today we have a little input from Peloton Fitness, a company I worked with years ago developing indoor cycling products. I have a Peloton seat post in my hand here, and the topic is reach to the handlebars. This kind of brought up why I'm making this video, and the other one is height-challenged individuals. In other words, the seat may not get low enough for some of you. How tall is that? That is something you can't say by like 5'2", 5'3", 5'4", because somebody 5'3", standing next to somebody else who's 5'3", one person may have longer legs than the other one. It really is leg length that kind of determines that. And that is why someone can say, well, it fits me just fine, and I'm 5'2", and the other person who's 5'2" says, well, it doesn't fit me. So yes, that can happen. Generally, though, this happens, though, to people around 5'1", even with very long legs relative to the size of your body. You start getting into the range where the Peloton might not quite get low enough, but I have a trick or a tip for you that may help. And the other one, 5'2", 5'3", 5'4", this is when things start to happen where, if somebody has a little bit shorter leg proportion to their body, it can start to be challenged. But I got a tip, and I want to show you a couple things. So what initiated this was a post on the forum that mentioned their lower back and they wanted to bring the handlebars closer. Well, number one, I have a seat post here. Everything is kind of loose, so bear with me. Next time I shoot this, I'm going to do a lot more props. So you have this 4/2 seat slider, as you all know, on your bike. Let me give you a tip. Everybody on the planet, push it all the way forward. Yes, just push it all the way forward. If this were an outdoor bicycle, nearly everybody on the Peloton is riding too far back. That's a little bit more of an issue when you're outdoors and 4/2 balance on the bike can potentially lead to some discomforts. Like in this case, well, it's reach to the bars. Well, I can tell you, number one, you want to get the lower body set first. Anyway, the lower body is almost always too far back. Well, always, I should say, on a Peloton. You got to remember, the Peloton was designed by a design firm, not necessarily a bicycle company. It wasn't designed by Peloton. A little bit to be desired in the bike fit area. So number one, move this thing all the way forward. That does two things. It brings you closer to the handlebars, but as you come forward, it lowers the seat height a little bit. See, as you go further away or further back, you actually increase your saddle height just a little bit. So number one, move it all the way forward. And no, sometimes this isn't the most smooth and elegant working piece on the Peloton. So there's another trick, though, that can help get you some more range, and that has to do with, and I'm going to just take this off the post here to show you that, and that is, where is the saddle mounted on this little clamp? So I'm talking about the clamp here. This is the little clamp that is mounted to the little knob or post here of your Peloton bike, and then it's also mounted to the seat. So it's mounted to this part of the Peloton. Okay. So almost everybody, and I've looked at several Pelotons and I looked at several pictures. You see this distance in the rails here? There's a little bit of distance fore and aft. I can't guarantee your bike was set up in this position. I can tell you when I set up manufacturing and things like that, I try to put every bicycle saddle in the same position for several reasons. One, I know where it is. If I suggest a bike fit, it's closely related. If you come in for repair, it was removed, blah, blah, blah. But what you can do is you can loosen this right here. I strongly suggest you use a wrench for this. This is, on most Pelotons, it's going to be a 13-millimeter wrench. However, and I don't know if that's been that way forever, because historically this little nut on here, actually was a 14-millimeter on most bikes historically. It seems to be morphing and changing to a 13-millimeter. It is best to use a wrench on this. It'd be great if you can use one with something like this on the end. And a little bit longer might be helpful as well, because when you tighten this up, you really need to get it nice and tight. And I'll go over that as well. But what you do is, if you loosen up, which I already have here, is you can take and then you can slide the seat post forward. So what you can see here is there's more rail here now in the front of this. What I just did was move the saddle further forward. That's going to get you closer to the handlebars, where I could go like this. That moves it further away from the handlebars. So here's your one quick tip. Boom. Move this forward right on here, and it'll get you closer to the handlebars. That also reduces your saddle height just a little bit. A challenge with the Peloton is that when you loosen it up, it starts to do this. This is the goofiest design. It does this. Whereas most bike seats and mounts, like if you were to look at a spinner bike, it won't rock side to side. but it could point either direction. It's usually pretty easy to get this thing centered and not tighten like this, but just tighten it kind of like this. It will not rock side to side this way because it is sticking kind of straight up and down, which is the way probably most should be. There's only one other bike on the planet that I'm aware of. There's probably more. Yeah, there is more, but of well-known brands. Ceres Cyclops bike has one mount like this. They have actually two mounts, but one is like this, and apparently these guys that designed it from decided to copy that. So as goofy as that is, so you got to be careful when you are tightening it that it doesn't go like this on you. You can put like maybe a ruler across it, something like that. You don't necessarily have to have a level. I think a ruler, you'll see whether it's tipping and tilting or not. This is your quickest way to immediately get closer to the handlebars and slightly lower the saddle. Now, let's say the saddle is still not low enough for you. I discovered something pretty cool because there are ways to lower this altogether, and it has to do with this mount here, this little clamp. And historically, on most traditional, you'd have to take this completely apart. And you would take this rail mount here and you would put it on the bottom, okay? So again, then if the rail's on top here, the saddle goes above, okay? The rails come down and they mount on the top, all right? But if I have this lower, now this goes further up and into the saddle and it mounts lower. That's one way to do it on a regular bike. However, there's a pretty cool trick on the Peloton, about the only cool one I found. But anyway, it is cool. You don't have to take this little piece apart. If you're ever going to take it apart, take a bunch of photos. I probably have found 7 or 8 videos within this video that I put together, and I need to probably break down each one individually, but you got to take it all the way. You got to take it all the way off, okay? And you got to have this nice and loose, and you want to turn this mount. A little challenging to do here in the video. Like I said, next time I'm going to do a lot more props, but I now have this much lower. Now, you may not have caught that. I just want you to look at the distance between here and the seat, okay? The bolt is now, or the nut is on the bottom of the rail. Here we go. Here is, I should say the bolt, of course. This post now is at the bottom of the rail. Here, the post is above the rail, okay? All right? I made a mistake by saying the nut is always below the rail in this position. But what you've done here is significantly lowered the saddle. And again, I would still jam that all the way forward on there. You might have to adjust the tilt a little bit. And look, by putting it in this position all the way forward and turning this upside down, you significantly lower the saddle height. Now, I've installed a lot of bikes in Asia, for example. The average height is a lot lower there. So we would turn these mounts over. I've done this to thousands of bikes now at this point. So let me show you a comparison side by side. So how this is going to normally look is this is the way your saddle is coming from Peloton. This is how it is when we turn it upside down. And let me change the orientation of that. The piece is up to the inside of this seat post, okay? This is lower. This is normal. This is how it comes. You want to change this orientation, and it will go a lot lower. And I have to use the post to do this and switch it up to the inside, stick it back in. Now, I just slid the seat all the way back. I want to jam that seat all the way forward to keep the height lower. Again, be careful of this tilt and rock. And when you tighten this thing, you really need to tighten it. Because you notice when I went, those are little notches or nowels. These are relatively cheap little clamps. Now, all of the bikes just about have a cheap little clamp. That's not Peloton's fault. That's what just about everybody picked and used. And it has these little notches. You can hear it. Now, when it's loose, that's okay. But if you have it tight where you think it's tight enough and then you sit on it and it goes, it kind of sort of smoothens these edges out and it makes it much more difficult to hold. You might be able to get away with 1 or 2 of those slips, but you do 3 or 4 of those, your saddle keeps slipping. You need to go buy a new piece like this from the store. Probably easier than the store and deal with Peloton. First of all, nobody at Peloton is even going to know about this. I don't expect them to. This is a bike fit thing, and I've worked in the industry and designed all kinds of products like this. So that's what you got to do. Keep in mind, when you get one from the store, this could be a 14 millimeter nut on here instead of a 13. So let me review. Number 1, slide this slider piece all the way forward. That's going to help with your reach to the bars. Everyone should do that anyway because It's too far back. The other one is you do need to take it off. Remember, your orientation is like this. I got the seat slid forward. It's up on top of it. Now, I switch this over, and I put this up to the inside now. Let me show you what it looks like without that. That's how it's going to look when it comes off normally. I'm using the little guide here as my... Now, this piece may not be as easy to get off because there's a little back thing on your seat post. Of course, when I ordered mine from Peloton, it didn't come with it, so it was very easy to slide off. All right, so here you go. This is lower, further forward. So you got two things managed there at one time. The other one, let's just say you need to go even lower. I can tell you this, time to look for another saddle is the wider your saddle is, okay? The wider it is, the taller you are on your seat. The narrower it is, nice and narrow, the lower you are on your seat. I know some instructors. I know an instructor at the gym I hang out here in Spokane. She brings her own, it's this bike, she brings her own little mount, and she has her own saddle on it, which reduces it. And unfortunately, I didn't get to her to show that we could have switched this around, but that helped. Hopefully this is helpful. I got a lot more tips in here and things that I can probably break down. I'm going to take some photos to show you a little bit before and after. So it was a little long, convoluted. This is my first time going through this in a video. I'm guessing next time I do it, it could probably be cut by 30%. I appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, there are several trained bike fitters out there at bikefit.com. You look for them. Ideally, you want to go and find a place that has this little thing called the saddle changer to look for the right saddle to begin with. Peloton doesn't necessarily do a bad job on that, but it's difficult to pick one saddle for everybody. And this is not a bad saddle. It probably fits 50% of you, which, by the way, is really high. Most saddles don't fit people. So it's not a surprise. It's not that people complain about saddle discomfort all the time on the forums because got to get the right saddle. And these things, these goofy covers are nothing more than like putting a Band-Aid. I appreciate watching. My name is Paul Swift. I'm with BikeFit, powered by CyclePoint. You can email us anytime. We will be glad to help you. And have a great day and a great ride.